we are looking at culture change, and in particular, the fact that culture change is hard. Doesn't matter how it comes and in what pace you're trying to change a culture, culture change is hard. And we use HARD as an acronym to explain the stages of change that groups go through and the dynamics that you can expect from that culture change. It's a process that you may have seen or heard in many different ways during your time in leadership. But for us at 277, we've looked to simplify it and we use the term HARD. And we're going to start with the high interest stage. So what does the high interest stage involve? Well, it's high energy, it's eagerness, it's high motivation. It's a good chance that people have come through a process that was probably quite stressful. There may have been anxiety involved. There may have been anticipation, waiting to hear whether this opportunity was going to come their way. But now they're there. Now they're part of a group, part of a team, part of an environment, and they're excited to be there. That high energy, that high motivation needs to be managed just as much as when things are low. It's really important that these people get some direction, especially if they're new into the environment, into the processes, into the team. What else can you expect from the high energy phase? It's at this stage that people are likely to default into their main characteristics. If they're an extrovert or someone that's more outward, confident, and finds it easy to interact with others, they will show that in this stage. It will come natural to them. If somebody has got through that process and finally made it into the opportunity they were hoping for, you may see that they start to fall back into their default state of being more inward. Maybe they're not the person to start a conversation, but they're happy to contribute when the time's right for them. You'll notice that at this stage. You may find that someone's very studious. They really want details, and maybe some of those details aren't necessary right now, but they're really keen to ask, and that's their way of showing their high interest and their high motivation. And you may have those people that are really quiet and inward and like to just sit in the background, but they're taking it all in. It's also likely that at this stage, people will be playing safe with their communication. Everyone's getting to know each other, and people are going to be conscious of saying the wrong thing. And therefore, we need to understand that might be holding people back, but once they settle into the team, they might contribute more. That's important to know. And people are also uncertain of their place within the dynamic. They understand their role, they've seen their job description, they've seen the values, the principles of the organisation they're joining, they've had your input and your feedback on their interview process potentially, or their change of role conversation, but they're not quite certain yet. And that's understandable. That's human nature, especially in a group dynamic. So we need to be aware of that as leaders as well. And it's also very important that us as the leadership team are aware that all of this high energy, high motivation, the eagerness, everything that people are displaying at this stage can also mask some of the fear that is sitting within people when they're going into a new role and a new group dynamic. A lack of knowledge around a new role or a new environment or a new group of people, which is totally understandable. We're going to lack knowledge when we first step into a new environment. That lack of knowledge can create a fear within us. And some people won't display that fear in the ways that we might believe they will. And we might not really know how much fear is sitting within these people. But what we do need to understand as leaders is that fear is very likely there. And for some people, that fear will create more anxiety than it will in others. And what that anxiety can create for people, and very often does create for people, is irrational thinking and behaviour. So if we understand all of these things, we don't even need to bring it out into the open, but we just need to be aware as we're observing and monitoring our team as they start this culture change. Because as we said at the beginning, culture change is hard, and we need to understand each stage of the process to make sure that we maximise the team, the individuals, and our organisational processes that are going to help us get to the goals that we've set out as a group. In part 2 of this video around the high interest, high energy stage, we will cover different tips and tricks that you can use to help manage this stage of the process. And then we'll move on to stage 2 in what we call the hard process, because culture change is hard.